Hi there, and welcome back to the Count to 10 podcast. My name is Simon Sanborn, and I'm a behavior teacher. And I started this podcast to see if I could give some feedback or some ideas to family, friends, guardians, parents, all that kind of good stuff on how to handle behaviors and understand behaviors. And then it's also kind of turned into more of a communication podcast as well. How can we better, if we're trying to better understand behaviors and what the messages they're sending us, what they're trying to communicate to us, that means we need to get better at communicating in general. So understanding those behaviors are a communication and not just a problem helps us think about it differently. So I was going to start to talk today a little bit about myself personally, just in a situation I've dealt with recently, and thought that it might have some insight for people because we all are human beings that have self-doubt and things like that. I had to have a conversation with a couple teachers that I thought was going to be contentious. Let's put it that way. And I'll start with that. And I'll start with that because the contentiousness wasn't a real thing, in the sense that I kind of came to that conclusion in my own mind and didn't think of it outside of that. So what happened for me was, again, I was kind of ruminating on this idea, of people questioning, what I was doing as a teacher, questioning my intentions, just I had a lot of ideas in my head of what I thought people believed I was doing or not doing, and believing in me too. So am I a good teacher? Am I accomplishing things? And, all these questions that I think a lot of us have, but it was pretty heavy. And in the midst of that, I was kind of trying to wrap my head around about how I wanted to approach this and to be ready for confrontation. And kind of what took place for me in my head was, the first question was, why is this going to be confrontational? Or why does it have to be, right? All I want to do, because I do believe that I'm a good teacher, and I do believe that we do accomplish things in the program that we have here. I thought, I don't need to be confrontational. Even if somebody else is confrontational, I don't have to be. I want to inform. I want to get people to understand my perspective or understand why I come at things the way I do, especially with behaviors. Because I've been doing it for a while. This is my 16th year doing, stuff with behaviors or with behavior classrooms. And once I switched my thinking from, oh my gosh, it's going to be a battle. Oh my God, it's going to be a confrontation, whatever it was. And I turned it into, I want somebody to understand what I'm thinking, understand my intentions. So once it switched over to the idea of I want to help them gain understanding, it just switched everything. Switched everything internally for me, and switched everything when it came to the actual conversation. Because at that point, once I shifted my thinking, and my therapist will tell you that that I do teach about behaviors, I do present about behaviors to classes or teachers and schools. I know a lot about it. And so she thinks that kind of what happened was I went to a thing that I knew I was good at. So I'm good about talking about behaviors and understanding behaviors and being a good teacher. So she said that that's a strength for you, and that's probably why you locked into that. But the bigger part for me was it lessened all my anxiety and my worry, which can inhibit me from communicating very well. So once that switch kind of happened in my thinking, the conversation was awesome, right? I work with pretty wonderful people. So the idea that it was going to be confrontational, like I said, was kind of all in my own head, so to speak. So it was just kind of one of those eye-opening moments for me personally, and as a human being on this planet trying to get through life day to day, just like everybody else. It was just a nice moment to say, okay, so we can continue to learn, we can continue to get better. And once I help people understand, so not me helping them understand, teachers know that behaviors are tough, right? They're tough to deal with, they're distracting, they can be loud, they can be scary, they can be disruptive, it can have all kinds of things. These behaviors can really throw people off. And I'm not just being teachers, I'm just being students who have to be present to it. So helping people remember that those behaviors don't feel good to those students either, right? That they don't enjoy feeling escalated. They don't enjoy being out of control. That does not feel good to anybody. And I think we as just people could understand that point of view. Because it doesn't feel good to be dysregulated. It doesn't feel good to be escalated in any way. And helping that come through to people, no matter who it is, that when we're communicating with others, that the way they respond, there is something behind that. I think I've even heard Oprah say, if I have a bad interaction with somebody or I see something I think is inappropriate, I no longer ask, what are you doing? I ask, what happened to you? And that's part of that, right? It's like these messages that are being sent to you, that are trying to be communicated to you, are for a reason. What is that reason, and how do we try to, in a student's case, get them to self-regulate better, right? That social emotional piece can be really tough. And so getting them to understand themselves better, have a lot of coping skills, a lot of tools in their toolbox. The hope is that they can continue forward as they grow into adulthood and take those tools and help them, right? We're going to help a kid learn how to read by giving him more attention. We're going to help a kid learn how to be part of our society by giving him those tools and that attention and the skill, teach them the skills that they need. So my big takeaway from that communication was, in the past podcasts, I've talked a lot about communication, but that change in my thinking didn't just benefit me. I felt better, but it benefited the people I was talking to. They could understand where I was coming from. They could understand what was happening with a student. They could understand what my perspective was of how we're going to address things, and why we're doing it, right? The why is always a super important part. But like I said, on this podcast, I talk a lot about things that have to do with communication. I give a lot of ideas, I give a lot of thoughts, I give a lot of tools. But this is a good example that I am still working on this too, right? I don't have it all figured out. 16 years being in a behavior-focused environment, I don't have it all figured out. And every individual I work with or who I teach is individually unique and individually need something different or a different approach sometimes. So, it's been difficult, but a good process of trying to give everybody what they need when it comes to communication and tools and ideas, but that it's going to be a continuous process. This is not going to stop. We're going to keep getting better at this and keep learning, grabbing new things. I don't know about you, but I hear a quote or I hear an idea or I hear a podcast and I'm like, that is it. What a great idea. And I just add it to my repertoire. And I got to, there's so much now. I got to pull up notes or pull up Pinterest or something to kind of figure out where I'm at. But, being human is a bumpy journey. And the better we can communicate with those around us, it allows moments like I talked about earlier to be hopeful, right? It gives me hope that in a moment when I was stressing myself out, I found this peace and comfort with shifting my thinking about how I was looking at this interaction that was going to take place. That to me is growth, and I like it when I see myself continue to grow. And that was just last week and this week. So it just happened. So after 51 plus years, almost 52, it's still part of what I'm doing as a human being to kind of keep finding my path. So I just thought I would share it with you that, we have a lot of self-doubts. And some of those self-doubts are legit, like this interaction, like I said, it made me realize that I have to do a better job of communicating, and not just with the people that I was talking to, everybody that I work with. I need to do a better job of communicating with the teachers who have my students. I need to do a better job of communicating with my associates. I need to do a better job of communicating with my wife in certain moments, right? All those, it's all part of the same thing. So that's kind of where I get my thinking from. I am a big holistic learner and thinker, but as I dig more into data and find more information, I just realized that some of the smaller things matter just as much as some of the bigger things. So talking about this communication on this podcast all the time, and then having issues with communicating, and then coming to a realization about how I want to communicate, I just thought was kind of funny and wonderful at the same time. I'm glad those things continue to happen. I don't want to get stagnant in my thinking. I don't want to get stagnant in my learning. So I just try really hard to kind of get myself out there a little bit. It feels a little embarrassing to think that I'm questioning myself as a teacher after 16 years. But that's what happens. Our brains are a pretty incredible machine, but they can throw us off sometimes. So, all right, that is all she wrote. Thank you so much for listening or watching. And if you ever have any ideas, or you have perspectives, or you have tools that that you've used and have worked really well for you, let me know. Just send me an email. My name is Simon Sanborn, so it's Simon SYMON Sanborn SANBORN @gmail. And I'll share a lot of ideas if I can. I have shared a lot of ideas and perspectives on this because people were asked not to say names and things, so I just kind of presented them as ideas. And that's been really awesome. I like to think of this as becoming kind of a little community of finding answers and solutions, because that's kind of what I do on a daily basis and a moment by moment basis, is solving a problem, or looking at an issue or a behavior and saying, how can we make this better? What can we do? What does this person need, so that they can communicate what they need in a different way, so we can all get along. So. All right. Thanks so much. If you have anything, please email me, and I appreciate you again. You intentionally taking time means a lot to me. So thanks so much. So have a nice weekend. Have a nice week. Have a nice Friday. Have a nice day. And we'll see you soon. Adios.